photography has become ubiquitous. Everyone photographs. So there's some very interesting kind of experiments taking place. Someone's invented a camera that hangs around your neck, a tiny little thing that leads to a hard drive or an upload, and it takes a picture every 30 seconds. So it's like this kind of vomit of photography. But it has, it gains a life of its own. It's like this kind of narcissistic way of diarizing your life. And I think that it can be interesting, and even if it's banal, I think it's quite telling. So you've got this approach to photography that's more about expression and less about the craft of photography. And I think for us old-fashioned types, I think the craft is essential. And so if you stick to your craft on the one side and combine that with a very clear idea of what you're trying to attain or achieve, in terms of, for example, you mentioned Marikana, for example, like, working steadily on one project as it progresses, as things change. And I mean, photography is a very kind of seductive medium, and as you were saying, it looks like the truth, it feels like the truth, and you might even believe it's the truth, no matter how understanding you are of that what we do is very subjective. It is a truth. But the thing is that your understanding of these things changes so much over time, of what was contained in that picture and was contained outside of the frame, that to look at a picture as a time capsule is, it's lazy and dangerous, I think.
For me, to use photography as for advocacy made sense, because everything that we're all about is political, but also at the same time, it will educate people in different faculties, using photography or visual media to make sense of our surroundings in South Africa, either business or activism.
In my last exhibition that's on now, I've used images that I've gotten from the media, because it's about Marikana, and media images and images that I took myself of the space. What I found really interesting about it, and why I kind of embarked on the process, was because the images, these images that were in the newspaper, were so striking and so strong, and they became part of the way we understand the events. And then I thought, well, at least for myself as a painter, using them as a kind of interpretive tool. So being able to take an image and do something with it, but keep the kind of integrity of what it was to start out with.
There is a difference between originality and uniqueness. And originality is a mood idea, but uniqueness, I think that what you said does happen. I think that an artist, their so-called signature, their personality comes through in their work, and maybe it comes through stronger in some people and not in others. If you take a very old example, say Braque and Picasso, I often felt that Braque's paintings were nicer than Picasso's, but Picasso became significantly more. He was more prolific and became, I think, more famous than Braque. And I don't know how that works, but I think what people latch on to some kind of association or identification in people's works. And then if you look through the history of art, that has happened in many occasions, and you could say, well, what makes the one artist lesser than the other?
I think there is more of a scare in us artists to not repeat yourself ad infinitum, because people will get bored. But on the flip side of that is this terrible knife edge, where as an artist, and you've established a certain kind of language, a visual language, and you suddenly say, you know what, I want to try something new now. The public do get kind of put off. It's like, what has she done? What is he doing now? And what does that mean for our collection, or the works of him or her that we've collected now? If he's going to go in a totally different direction, is that going to, impact on the value of the work? Which is something that kind of plays in the back of your mind, but as an artist, it's very hampering in the process. So you try not to think about it too much.
What makes art original is how maybe the curators or art collectors perceive it. There's a lot of interesting work where people use material and then how that artist interprets, and also how people write artist statement might seem as if that piece of art is new when it's long existed. Because then we live in spaces that are infested by binaries, where an artist that is self-taught has amazing work might be taught by an artist who has the art language. I think that originality has a lot to do with the language, the space and timing and geographies, and also how those are on top interpret it as something that is new.
I think there's an interesting thing with painting particularly, because it is an interpretive process in a way. So you feel like that you owe somebody who is going to be looking at it, you owe them some sort of a hint or a cue or some suggestion of where you're going or what you're trying to do. But you also don't want to give someone a big explanation that cuts out any sort of wiggle room. And it's an interesting thing also with artist statements, because everyone is constantly asked for an artist statement. You have to come up with the same thing where you're trying to explain what you're doing without closing it off completely and without putting a full stop on anything, because you feel like you need to leave it a little open, but at the same time you sort of don't want to leave people swimming around in the dark.